is so hard. Whew. Oh my God. It is time. So I have ran at full speed for about 6-7 years from this. And it is time that I share my testimony. The one that I have for years been ashamed of. The one that has really caused me the most internal turmoil. The one that has broken my heart. The one that I tried to polish up for the world to see, but yet still wasn't fully what it was. By the title of this video, I'm going to walk you guys through something that has been so private to me. And for a while now, the Lord has asked me to share this. I am not sharing this for anybody's opinion, approval, disapproval, likes. I'm sharing this for 2 people, and that's it. Anybody else, if you want to continue watching it, by all means, I hope that you are blessed by this video. But this video is really for 2 people. The first person is for the spouse that is currently where I was 7 years ago. And for the spouse that is currently in where my husband was a few years ago. The Lord has arrested my heart in such a way where I can't move on or move forward with anything until I release this. If you're anything like me, a time or 2, you may have allowed fear to stop you from what God has called you to. And I can no longer allow fear, the spirit of fear, to cause me to delay anything else in my life. It's over. Like, it's a wrap for real. Without me delaying this anymore, I want to first say that this has been the hardest thing that I probably have ever done in my life. Living it out was definitely harder. But being on this side where you sense the Lord knocking at the door of your heart and saying, hey, I know I'm favoring you and blessing you and all these different things, which are absolutely amazing because I love you, daughter. But remember the last thing I told you to do. Remember. And I think oftentimes when it comes to our stories and our testimonies, we try to polish it up because it's so messy. And we think people are going to think different of us because it's so messy. And we're like, oh, well, let me polish up the time that I got it wrong, right? To make it seem like, well, or let me polish this thing up so it doesn't sound as bad. But God still gets the glory, right? Like, God still came through. And as he does get the glory. But my story is one that I tried to polish up the messy parts because I did not have answers. I genuinely still, with certain things, do not have answers. But God has restored and has healed my life and has brought so much peace into my heart and into my life, into my mind, that I would literally be sitting on one of the most beautiful things that I can even offer you guys, which is God's love, which is God's kindness, which is the truth of who he has really been to me, beyond the story that I've shared with you years ago about becoming a young widow at the age of 26, beyond all of the things that, the insecurities and things that I've been through. It's this right here that I have been running away and avoiding because it's so delicate. There's so many layers to it, but really it's not about me. It was never about me. It was about the story that God was writing through me, and for me to open my mouth and share the goodness of the Lord. In Revelations 12:11, I'm going to get my phone. It says in the King James Version, it says, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." The word of their testimony pretty much means you opening your mouth to share what God has done for you, how he was a healer, how he was a provider, how he was your best friend when you felt abandoned and rejected. Back in 2016, I came home to a letter, and it was my husband pretty much coming out to me. It was very traumatic to come home to a letter written describing that the person that you've known for 10 years is now wanting to create a different lifestyle for themselves and no longer involve you in their lives and no longer want to be with you because they've chosen this route in life. And I think looking back now, years later, there were certain things that I bypassed because of familiarity. A lot of things were very familiar to me, and I didn't see them as red flags at the time. So I get into this marriage super young, 21 years old, married for 5 years. And at that time, in 2016, my husband came out to me, and the months after that moment were absolutely hell. I was fighting for a marriage that was already done on the side of my spouse. And if anybody has ever been in that situation, you know that like you can fight for it. You can do all the things, you can pray on it. I believe that prayer is powerful, but it's very difficult to hope and keep the hope and keep the faith in something where the other person has already exited stage left, when the other person has already been like, yeah, I'm out of here. And that's very hard. It's hard in friendship. It's hard in relationship. It's hard in marriage. It creates this level of rejection, betrayal, abandonment. As you guys can imagine, there were a lot of things that had transpired within the months to come after that coming out. And it became very clear and evident that he was no longer interested in being married to me. And that was hard, y'all. It's hard being someone who hundreds and thousands of people look up to you and think you're so beautiful and admire you and look to you for hair tutorials and are just looking for you for hope. And the little hope that you have, you're trying to put it together so that you stay alive. The truth is that I was dying on the inside. And my late husband had left the marriage before I could even catch up with the reality of what was happening. It was very cold. It was very cold and very depressing. I started going to therapy a few months after that to prepare for what could be, at that time, a divorce. And when I started therapy, I was borderline clinically depressed. Started therapy November of 2016 or October of 2016. And I was working through certain things. And I was walking through grief. the stages of grief, the things you feel when you're grieving someone or just something that will no longer be. And one of the things that he had expressed to me that he wanted was a divorce. And of course, coming up in church and being Christian and all that stuff, that was like the last thing that I wanted. So all I knew and all I was taught was to pray, and just that's not what I wanted. And there came a point on a few months later where I had to surrender to the Lord. And after I shed all my tears, boo-hooed and cried, and swept the floor with my face, because that's just how grieved I was with everything that was happening, I had to surrender it to the Lord. I had to say, God, I just give you back what really belongs to you. Your son. This is your son. And I remember just weeping that night. This was January 7th of 2017 now. And a lot of people ask me, like, what were those last moments with Curtis, and how was that last week with Curtis? And there's so many things that transpired because the Lord was really just preparing me, but I just didn't know that the preparation was so final for something so final like death. And there were so many questions that I had. God, why didn't you turn things around? Or why did it have to be that way? Like, dang, that was a little harsh. How could you allow this to happen? What are you using this for? What, all the questions that you're probably wondering right now, I have walked through and I have asked the Lord all of those things. And the only thing that I can come up with is that God is sovereign, and that the Lord was almost loving Curtis through the love that I was still giving to him. Because you see, what I think he probably expected was for me to run away. And I could have been like, you know what? Yeah, bump you. You lied to me. And here we are. But I didn't. I loved him so deeply. I meant what I said when I made the vows and I made the covenant that I did to him. I meant every word. And even him saying that he was gay, I was still going to love him, but I knew that I had to let go as well. I knew that I had to let go. The reason why I am finally sharing this part of my testimony, and there's probably so many details, so many questions, so many things so many routes that I can go to, but I wanted to do this right here, right now, because I truly feel like God has just healed me from that level of rejection in such a supernatural way that I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. I was in such a dark place that I was willing to stay in something that was causing me so much grief, so much depression, so much sadness. I was not who I am today. I did not have the knowledge that I have today. I did not have the language that I have today. I didn't have the confidence or the courage or the boldness that I have today. And the reason why I say that is because I know that the two people that I mentioned that this video is for, they're in that you are in that situation right now. And you're probably looking at me like, how in the world did you survive such a deep rejection, such a painful season? And I don't have a 1, 2, 3 guide. I don't have all the answers. All I'm doing is standing in the gap for you at this very moment. To the spouse that is currently in the scenario where your husband or wife has just told you that they no longer want to be married, that they want a divorce, that they no longer want to be with you, you are not alone. And even if you are someone who is struggling with their sexuality and you're the only one that knows, you are not alone. The God that comforts is with you. The one thing that I was able to do in my time, in that time frame of my life, and really carried through even till this day, is journal my process. I have years of journaling and prayers to the Lord that He answered. Now, when I say He answered, they weren't necessarily in the ways that I wanted Him to answer. And I had to gradually get into a place of peace and get to a place of healing, because I wanted what I wanted. But the rejection that I experienced was really in the name of God's protection of my heart. My heart is one of the most beautiful gifts that God has given me, because it's a heart after God. And the enemy has tried so much and for so long to kill the heartbeat that beats on the inside of me, but he never won. And I just want you in that situation right now. You feel alone. You feel like no one understands. You feel like, God, why me? Why am I walking through this? I'd had no idea, right? Like, or maybe I did feel something, but I said, nah, there's no way this person loves the Lord. Like all these different things, yet you're still in this situation. You're not alone. I have been contending for you for years. I have been praying for you for years. You are not alone. To the person that has no idea how to even get out of this, or how to figure this out, or how to make sense of all of this, the only thing that I can say is that you withholding this information is only hurting those around you, because your person is only living a reality that is a fraction of your reality and the realities that you process. It's hard to really express or to share on this side, because I was on the other side. But don't marry somebody to cover up what you're already aware of. And I know that this is such a complicated conversation, and I hope that you guys hear my heart when I'm talking about this, because my heart is for these two people. Your opinions and all of that don't matter at this moment more than the heart of the spouses in this situation, because I was one of them. So I know this. I just want y'all both to know that God loves you so deeply. Whew. God loves you so deeply that there's nothing that you can share and say that will catch him by surprise, or that will make him love you any less than he already does love you. And my prayer is that this ignites in you to have conversation, to be honest, not to marry someone to cover up the things that you already feel. Don't do that to somebody. Don't do that to somebody that you actually dearly love. Don't try to force something that you already know is not something you want to commit to. There's a lot of language that I don't know, y'all. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm like, man, like, God, how does this make sense? Like, how do I show up as a loving person and share my story and share my testimony? God snatched me up from the grave of my heart that I was in, because I was so grieved by the fact that I went through this. And then I was grieved by the fact that he asked me to share this. I kind of felt like Jonah. There's a book in the Bible called Jonah. If you guys want to read it, the parts that I'm mainly talking about was when God had asked him to go ahead and give some instruction to a people that were being like low-key, they was out of control. They was out of control. And Jonah was so grieved by these instructions that he said, you know what, Lord, like anything but this. Anything but this. Like, please ask me to go somewhere else. I don't even want to go there, because he knew that it was almost like a mission that he felt like was impossible. And so for the last 6 years, y'all, I have been grieved by the reality of, like, I knew that there was going to come a time that I was supposed to share this story with you guys. And it more so grieved me because it caused so much pain for me. It caused so much shame. I loved Curtis. Like, I honored him. All I wanted to do was honor him and honor the legacy of his name. But God told me one day, he said, I know that you're honoring Curtis, but now you're dishonoring me, because I gave you clear instructions and you are delaying, which at the end of the day is being disobedient. I really didn't have any points. I was not going to have a script to this type of video, because I just wanted this to be literally from my soul to your device, TV, wherever you're watching this. And for you to understand that you are not alone. If you've experienced rejection, disappointment, abandonment, betrayal, you are not alone. The Lord is more than capable of redeeming your heart, of restoring your heart, of healing you in such a way where you're not even who you were before, but you're like an even more beautiful version of who you were, because you are now carrying a wisdom of this situation that you did not have before. And although this broke your heart so heavily, it was God's protection over you to not allow you to have the actual thing that you wanted. And I know, I know, like, a lot of us, like, including myself, like, I don't like to buy into, like, oh, God causes this pain and walking with God is such a painful walk and all that stuff. But we have to be honest, like, we're living this life, and people get to make their own decisions. We get to make our own decisions. Sometimes we be trifling, y'all. Like, we really do be trifling. But there is nothing more beautiful than to be found at the feet of Jesus, saying, hey, listen, God, I have no idea what we're doing with this. I have no idea where we're going with this. This hurt my feelings. This hurt me to my core. But God, I'm just going to give this to you, because I know that you can make beautiful things out of ashes, out of the ashes of our dreams, the things that we desired for our lives and it didn't go that way, the things that we dreamt up in our lives and it didn't go that way, the grief that we experience when we experience a loss of the physical presence of someone, and even the loss of a relationship that we once really wanted to go the distance. Even in that, when we surrender that hurt and that disappointment and that rejection back to God, He is quite literally the only one that is able to restore as if it never happened, to redeem you as if it never happened. I have no bitterness in my heart. I have walked through this thing. I have cried. I have wailed. Is that the word? I have literally wept. And I have asked the Lord to heal me. And He did. And He did. Rejection is not my story. Rejection is not my portion. Jesus healed my wound. So I know that this video is a hard one maybe. I know there's probably just like a lot of things that may have came up in your heart and your mind, like, Michelle, whatever that question is, whatever. But I assure you guys that I am doing so good. So good. Like, the way that God has turned everything around in my life, He is so amazing. That even the greatest hurt that I ever felt in my life, He is literally, I will literally give up everything. And I mean everything, so long as I have Him. I don't have need of anything. And I mean that, y'all. Like, I hope that you guys feel my heart and that you know that and that you understand that, like, God is so kind. God is so kind. He is so good. He is so good. And when life tried to destroy my very soul, my very heart, my very just being, God came in and rescued me. He rescued my life. And there's no way that I could ever go back and turn my back on Him, because He rescued me. And so I really don't know how to end this video other than the fact that that is my story. And if you have a story that you're afraid is too messy, it's too vulnerable, go to God about it and say, God, this really is something that I can't polish in a way that I want to. But I want to give it back to you so that you get the glory. You may not be called to do a video like this or to even share it online or anything. Maybe it's a one-to-one setting. Don't be afraid to share your testimony. You quite literally smash the head of the enemy every time you open up your mouth. And baby, I ain't ever scared, okay? I am no longer allowing the enemy to keep my mouth shut. This is a real thing. This is a real thing. And I'm excited for what is to come. I'm excited to see how God gets the glory out of this. I'm excited to hear from those who deeply resonated with this video and who deeply understand. I know there's a lot of you that have felt so alone, like no one can relate to you. Baby, I understand. Friend, I understand. And so I just want to do a quick prayer and I'm going to end the video. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this moment. I thank you that there will never be a moment like this ever in life, in time, in space, ever. And so I just pause to give you thanks. I thank you that you are the one that orchestrated this moment. I thank you that there is, even if there is one person, one person that this blesses, that is all this was for. Father, I thank you that you always come back for the one. That even the one soul matters to you so deeply that you will come back for the one. God, I thank you that you have sacrificed your son so that we can testify because you've already overcome. We're already coming from a place of victory. God, I pray that whoever this video was for, that they receive whatever it is that they needed to receive. that you meet them right where they are, and that they feel just this supernatural hug from heaven in their living room, their bathroom, their bedroom. You know their pain. You know exactly where they are. And I just pray that your supernatural peace overwhelms them right now. I thank you that you are getting the glory in this. I thank you that you make all things new. I thank you that you did not fail. God, you did not fail me. You are indeed giving beauty for ashes. I love you and I thank you. You guys, if this is your first video watching of me, child, it was a deep one. But I would definitely invite you to watch the Unscripted Grief series and just my vlogs. Nothing is changing on my channel other than the fact that, like, I know that God is going to be using this, and I know that God is going to allow me to talk about this a little bit more in depth and really share just some wisdom and some things that I have been holding back because I just didn't know how to share, what to say. But it's time. It's time we all walk in what God has ordained for us to walk in. Sis, bro, friend, this generation needs what's on the inside of you. I'll see you guys in my next video.